Cleopatra is remembered for her legendary romances, but were her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony driven solely by passion? Or was there something far more strategic behind these alliances? Imagine if, instead of following the conventional path of love, Cleopatra was actually playing one of the most intelligent political games in the history of ancient Egypt. What if everything we believed about her feelings was, in fact, a smokescreen to conceal a masterful plan for power and survival? The truth might be surprising. In this video, we will dive deep into the relationships of this enigmatic queen and uncover whether her choices were driven by the heart or by the desire to maintain her throne. What would you have done in her place? Get ready to reevaluate everything you thought you knew about Cleopatra. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra did not come into the world with a simple life. Daughter of a lineage of pharaohs, her cradle was the glorious Alexandria, a city that blended the splendor of ancient Egypt with the influences of the Hellenic world. From an early age, she already demonstrated a unique talent for leadership and politics, something rare in a male-dominated society. Her father, Ptolemy XII, prepared her to take the throne, but who would have thought that this young woman would become one of the most fascinating figures in history? It's interesting to think that even back then, Cleopatra knew that to conquer power, it took more than inheritance. It required strategy. What's most impressive about Cleopatra was her sharp mind. She wasn't just another beautiful ruler in the chaotic politics of her time. Intelligent, bold, and determined, Cleopatra spoke several languages, making her a true bridge between cultures. This ability set her apart from her predecessors because, in addition to mastering Greek, the official language of the dynasty, she was the first in her family to learn Egyptian, connecting directly with her people. Imagine the impact this had on negotiations and alliances she formed. Her intelligence wasn't theoretical but practical, always keeping her a step ahead of her rivals. Politics in ancient Egypt, however, was not a game for the weak. Cleopatra knew her reign would not be easy. Still young, she faced the loss of her father and civil war in her country. But this woman, unlike many others, didn't let circumstances define her destiny. With the strength of someone who knew she had to fight for her place, Cleopatra used every opportunity, every mistake, and every triumph to her advantage. Her early years in power, surrounded by intrigues and betrayals, were just the beginning of a journey that would become legendary. Cleopatra didn't stand out only for her political skill. Her knowledge was vast and profound. She mastered subjects such as philosophy, mathematics, and rhetoric, being a true scholar of her time. This intellectual background helped her maintain her throne during a turbulent period in the history of ancient Egypt. Imagine the impact of a leader who not only made strategic decisions, but also understood the philosophical foundations behind those choices. It's no wonder she managed to handle the complexities of power, always balancing reason and emotion. Moreover, the fact that Cleopatra was the first of her dynasty to speak Egyptian played a crucial role in her popularity. While many of her predecessors communicated only in Greek, Cleopatra understood the importance of speaking the people's language. This was not just a matter of diplomacy, but of empathy and connection with the citizens. In any leadership, the ability to speak the other's language opens doors and builds bridges. Imagine how you would feel if the ruler of your nation could converse with you directly in your language. That was the key difference that made her beloved, even in times of uncertainty. And let's not forget that, in addition to all this, Cleopatra was a natural strategist. She knew exactly how to use her intelligence to win allies and manipulate situations to her advantage. Her knowledge of several languages gave her direct access to foreign leaders without needing interpreters. How many leaders today can navigate between different cultures and politics with such fluency? Cleopatra did this with mastery, showing that her mind was her most powerful weapon, a skill that would place her in the path of the most powerful figures of her time. Cleopatra understood that, to secure power in ancient Egypt, she would need strategic alliances, and the Roman Empire was the dominant force of the time. By becoming involved with Julius Caesar, Cleopatra was not just entering a personal relationship. She was playing political chess with some of the greatest leaders in history. Her union with Caesar brought her protection and stability at a time when her reign was threatened. More than that, the bond with Rome placed Cleopatra in a position of power and prominence on the international stage, opening doors for the strengthening of Egypt. The relationship between Cleopatra and Mark Antony followed a similar logic. He, one of Rome's most influential generals, also saw her as a powerful ally. Together, they not only formed a romantic partnership but also a solid political alliance. This union strengthened both of their positions in the power game, but it also put them on a collision course with the Roman Senate, especially with Octavian, who saw Antony as a threat to his control. Cleopatra, ever shrewd, used these relationships to ensure Egypt's survival, showing that for her, politics and passion were tools for the same goal. It's interesting to note how, in history, Cleopatra's relationships with these two Roman leaders are often viewed through a romantic lens. But behind this, there was a clear strategy of survival and power expansion. She knew how to use her charisma and intelligence to attract these powerful men and, in doing so, secure the safety of her kingdom. If we stop to think, how many leaders today can manipulate the political scene with such subtlety and skill? Cleopatra did it with mastery, moving between personal and political matters without losing sight of what was most important, the future of ancient Egypt. Cleopatra's reign was marked by constant political struggles, both internal and external. She faced a series of family conflicts, particularly with her brother and co-regent Ptolemy XIII, with whom she shared the throne. These conflicts turned into a true civil war, where Cleopatra had to fight for her survival and control of ancient Egypt. But, as always, her ability to navigate turbulent waters helped her turn the game in her favor. To secure her position, she resorted to strategic alliances and used her intelligence to place herself at the center of political decisions. Externally, Cleopatra also dealt with enormous pressures, especially from the rising power of Rome. Egypt, at the time, was a coveted jewel for the Romans, and Cleopatra knew that without support, her homeland would be doomed to domination. The Roman Civil War, in particular, brought additional challenges to the queen, who had to balance her loyalty to allies and to the Egyptian people. Maintaining power in Egypt while the world around her was in chaos was no easy task, but Cleopatra, with her determination and ability to adapt, remained steadfast in the face of all these obstacles. Amid this whirlwind of conflicts, Cleopatra demonstrated her true strength as a leader. It wasn't enough just to rule. She had to survive constant coups, betrayals, and battles. She did this with rare skill, always seeing one step ahead of her adversaries. After all, politics in ancient Egypt was like a chess game, and Cleopatra knew very well that every move had to be calculated with precision. And so, even in the midst of her struggles, she remained a central figure, shaping the fate of a nation. The end of Cleopatra was as dramatic as her life. After Mark Antony's defeat at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, she found herself in a desperate position. Ancient Egypt, which she had fought so hard to protect, was on the verge of being absorbed by the growing power of Rome. With Mark Antony dead and Octavian marching toward Egypt, Cleopatra knew that her nation's fate was sealed. But instead of submitting to the humiliation of being captured and paraded as a war trophy, she chose a different path, a final act of control over her life: suicide. It is said that Cleopatra used the bite of a snake, the asp, to end her life. Whether this is the truth or not, what is clear is that she made this choice as a final statement of power. Even in her end, Cleopatra refused to be a victim of others' designs. She wanted her death to be as memorable as her life. And so, this final act solidified her legacy as one of the most striking figures in history. Ancient Egypt, which she had ruled so skillfully, was incorporated into the Roman Empire, but her memory would live on forever. Cleopatra's legacy continues to fascinate the world to this day. Her life and death have become symbols of power, passion, and politics. For many, she represents the ability of a woman to maintain control in a world dominated by men. Even her death was not a failure but a declaration of independence. After all, Cleopatra chose her destiny, and with that, ensured that her name would never be forgotten. In a way, she won the final battle, not on the battlefield, but in the eternal memory she left in the heart of history. Now that you know the true story behind Cleopatra's relationships, the question remains: what wisdom from this can you apply to your own life? The choices we make, whether political or personal, shape our destiny. And if you had the power to choose your path today, Would you take the reins as Cleopatra did? The Queen of Egypt shows us that it's possible to use even the most difficult situations to our advantage, but it's up to you to decide how to use this knowledge. Are you ready to take control of your life? Leave your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to continue learning about the most fascinating figures in history. Let's explore together what the past has to teach us.